This PowerPoint will help you in finishing up your 360-degree professional or 360-degree project with information about the 360-degree professional development plan. To start with, we'll recap a little bit about where we have been and where we are now. So far, you've completed all of the preliminary parts of the 360 evaluation plan. You wrote an introduction at the very beginning of the semester that introduced you and where you've been on your journey in teaching and learning. Then you prepared a philosophy statement that was connected to the research and theories and beliefs of other folks in the field. Over the last several weeks, you've been working on the evaluation components, or the teacher as researcher, teacher as instructor, all of those components that are part of the evaluation of yourself in terms of teacher characteristics. Each one of those had 3 components. The first was a definition that you created and you supported with research from the field as to what that aspect of teaching really meant. Then a listing of the evidences you used to evaluate yourself in relation to that component. And then a strengths and areas for growth chart or narrative, where you really did do the evaluation based on those evidences you reviewed and noted where you had strengths and where you had weaknesses, or where you wanted to continue to develop and grow. The very last piece was a reflection or a summary that took all 5 of those characteristics and wrapped them up in one statement or one short set of paragraphs that talked about where you were right now, having looked at all of the pieces together. Where do you fall in terms of what you do well in general and where you want to continue to grow for the future. So what comes next? Well, the final component of the 360 evaluation project is what we will call a long-term or long-range professional development plan. This plan should ultimately come from the summary of your strengths and areas for growth, or that reflection piece that you completed most recently. From there, you're going to choose a few areas of focus. You're not going to choose 50 things to work on over the next several years, but you're going to choose 2 or 3, maybe 4 at the most, places where you would like to grow, where you'd like to improve, where you'd like to expand your impact in some way, shape, or form. They don't all have to be negatives. They can be taking some positives and moving them even further forward. But you should be thoughtful about them, and they should come from those evaluations that you've done. So before you get started on making the professional development plan, what are some of the things that make for good professional development? Well, in our minds, there are really 3 qualities that a good professional development plan includes, or 3 things that one does in thinking about developing oneself professionally. The first has to do with learning, the second in doing, and the third in sharing. Under the learning category, that phase is really, or should really be, about gaining knowledge or skills or insight in some way, shape, or form. And this can come in taking a course, in reading, in observing other folks, but it's a way for you to gather information, a way for you to gather insights or skills so that you can adjust practice or add things to your repertoire. In the doing phase, this is an opportunity for you to try some things out. In the trying out phase, one often should take time to reflect on what's going on, and maybe even make some revisions, adjustments, or refinements to one's practice, and maybe even try it again. Sometimes the things that we try don't work as effectively as we think they will the first time out. So we need to make some adjustments there, and that would be part of the doing phase. And the third component, or the third phase, would be a sharing phase. Really good professional development, just like your action research project components that you've been working on, are really about not just doing this for your own sake, but for the betterment of other folks as well. If you've learned a new practice, a new skill, or a new idea, and it seems to be working or helping out in your classroom, then you might want to share those ideas or practices with other folks. And that would be what the sharing component would be like. It can be as simple as sharing things with a grade level, with your school team. It can be presenting at a conference, or writing a paper or an article or that kind of a thing. So to help you along with this process, we have developed a template for you to use in creating your professional development plan. In the template, you'll be able to enter all of the information or all of the necessary components that will help you to create what we think is a complete and workable plan. Remember that the template is a guide. If this isn't the way your brain works, try to make sure you use all of the information that's presented there to make the plan in your own style. But it should provide you some direction. So what goes in a professional development plan? Well, the first piece of the template is a goal or objective. You certainly want to think about a long-term goal. We're talking about something that lasts more than a 6-week period or a grading period. We're talking a year-long or a 2-year-long kind of a goal or objective. So to develop teaching strategies to better integrate higher order thinking skills might be a goal or an objective that someone might work on over a longer period of time. You can work on different aspects of that at different phases of the year or over 2 years of time. The goal or objective would be the thing on which all of the rest of the pieces in this particular section would focus. The second piece then would be to think about the activities that you might undertake in order to meet that particular goal or objective. Think about or answer the question, what will it take for me to accomplish this goal? Sometime you might want to think about a backwards design model or backwards design principles when you're thinking about the activities, and really sort of walk backwards from where you think the success place is back to where you think you will be starting, and see what activities you might need to undertake in order to get from where you are now to where you want to be. You can even think about it as a backpack, the ultimate goal or objective being that backpack, and then all of the activities that you might need to undertake as the things that need to go into that backpack in order for you to have some success. You would list each of the activities that you would want to do separately on its own line, so that you would be able to assess it along the way and know where you are in your process. No good professional development plan can be successful if you don't consider what resources you might need in order to to reach the success level or to reach achievement of your goals. Try to be specific here. You may not know the exact dollars and cents for things, but it does take time, money, resources. It sometimes takes other people in order to help do these things. And so it is important for you to consider what it would take for each activity to be completed successfully. That's what this section is ultimately used for. The evidence or assessment section is a place for you to note what you might be able to show or what artifact you might be able to collect or have on hand as evidence that you've completed that particular activity. Certainly on the teacher appraisal instrument that we're using now in North Carolina, there is an opportunity for teachers to maintain evidences to support the various levels of evaluation that are noted on it, and this would be an opportunity for you to collect some of those evidences to support your own professional development and evaluation for your summative evaluation. Be thoughtful. You don't want to collect 1,000 things to show that you've accomplished something, but what is something that could show that you really have undertaken this activity, or that you've had some success in the activity? One artifact or a couple of artifacts might be sufficient. This last piece has to do with a timeline, and this is to be realistic, or to help you think through how long it really might take to do some things. Be mindful that you do have a life and a job and other things going on, and so if fall is the time when your children focus on football and you need to be spending lots of time running to practices and to games and to those kinds of things, you probably won't accomplish lots and lots and lots of these activities during the fall because you have other things on your plate. That's perfectly fine. You need to make the timeline fit your own life and your own schedule. The timeline is to help you gauge over the year-long or 2-year-long period when you might engage in particular activities. Some things are specific to time periods, other things you have a little bit of wiggle room for. Be thoughtful about how you want to place those in your timeline. So, when you've completed all of those, and you will complete those for each of the objectives that you set for your professional development plan, how will you wrap up all of this 360 evaluation project? Well, once you have all the pieces, you're going to put them all together. And you'll put them together basically in the order that you created them. Be sure you've put a title page with your name on there at the beginning, and then be sure that you've got all of the different components that are listed. You will want to include some of the major, or include the major evidences that you've used to evaluate yourself, or summaries of those. If you did some surveys, it would be appropriate to include a copy of the survey and probably a summary of the results. There's no need to include all of the individual survey responses that people shared with you. That would be too much. When you're all the way finished, you'll want to upload an electronic version of your 360-degree evaluation project to Blackboard, and we'll put a spot there in the assessment tab, and then to TaskStream as well. The very final step in this process will be to have a very short conference with the course instructors about your plan, and we will develop a schedule for that and get that to you so that you can sign up for a time. These will be by telephone or Skype so that it's convenient for you, and it'll basically talk a little bit about your project and then a little about your future plans and goals. These aren't things to be worried about, but things where we can help celebrate your successes to date. Hopefully this has been helpful to you in getting the final pieces of your project together. These projects will be note on Blackboard when the due date is, and make sure we have all of your papers by the time that we need them.